Hey guys, what's going on? It's Blayde again from Car Audio Security, and today we're looking at 5 ways to improve the bass in your vehicle. So the first part you want to be looking at under power is amplifier output. Now, you need to be making sure that the amplifier is producing the correct power for your subwoofer. Now, that doesn't just mean what it says on the box. Let's say it's an amplifier that says 1200 watts on the box. That is not what that amplifier produces. That's usually the maximum power. You need to be looking for the RMS power, which is its normal running power in normal condition. Also, you need to be matching that RMS power with the RMS power of your subwoofer. So let's say you've got a 500 watt RMS subwoofer. You need a 500 watt RMS amplifier, there or thereabouts. Also, you need to think about impedance, which is ohms. So you need to match the power and the impedance to the subwoofer. So you need a 500 watt RMS at 2 ohm subwoofer. You need a 500 watt RMS at 2 ohm amplifier. It goes without saying. Next thing is battery voltage. Now this is very, very important. If your amplifier states it's 500 watt RMS, but your battery is not capable of producing that, or the voltage is dropping, then you're not going to be getting 500 watt RMS. You need to be making sure that your battery is of good health and the current is not being drawn too much and producing a lower voltage from the battery. So you need to be within 13 to 14.8 volts to be stable. If you're below that, you need to be giving that some attention. So probably a good idea to invest in a voltmeter or just testing it whilst the sub is playing with a multimeter. That's probably a good idea. Now next, second battery and split charge. This is more if you're looking to play the system with the vehicle off, for instance. So a second battery on its own is just going to help out the first battery, give it a bit more power. But a split charge relay essentially stops the power from being drawn from the main battery when the vehicle is off. So that way, if you're playing the system really, really loud and you've got your engine off, you're only going to be drawing power from that second battery and not from your main battery. So that way you've always got enough amps to crank the vehicle over and start it. And that way the relay will open up again and charge the second battery. Now lastly, in the power category, you've got the big 3 upgrade. Now you may or may have not heard of this. This is really if you're running a big system and going to be drawing a lot of current. This is essentially just going to upgrade the factory wiring in the engine bay. So essentially what that is the positive wire that goes from your battery to your alternator, you're going to be upgrading that. So if it's a factory, let's say a 4 gauge cable, you'll upgrade that to a 0 gauge. Same goes for the negative to the chassis, so from negative from the battery to the chassis of the vehicle, and then also the earth cable that goes from the engine to the chassis also. That gives you a stronger base for the alternator to charge more, send more current to the amplifier. Now secondly, we're looking at enclosure. Now arguably this would be the best way to upgrade the bass output of your existing system. Let's say for instance you've got a big 12-inch subwoofer, let's say that pushes out 1000 watts RMS. If you put it in a tiny little sealed subwoofer box like this, you're not really going to be getting much bass. You need to have the correct enclosure for your subwoofer. So if we look here, we've got sealed or ported. So the difference between the two sealed and ported boxes looks something like this. So a sealed box is going to generically be just a rectangular wedge-shaped box, something like this with the subwoofer, I know, sorry, horrible drawing, but with the subwoofer in the middle. It's going to be completely sealed. You'll probably have a terminal on the side to connect all your cables, and that's basically it. So ported boxes are very similar. Most of the time they're going to be a bit bigger. So if I just draw like that. So you'll most of the time have your sub like that, but you'll also have a port. So this is the hole inside the side of the subwoofer box. This will be basically ported all the way through to the back and will allow the pressure that this is gaining when moving in and out to escape out of here. So obviously, as I said, sealed box, it's just a generic small, most of the time, sealed enclosure, and the ported box, usually quite a bit bigger, will produce a lot more bass. Now next, you've got too big or too small enclosure. If your enclosure is too small for the subwoofer you have, you're really not going to be getting anywhere near what the subwoofer can really produce, sound-wise. So you're really going to be limiting yourself. You need to be looking again at the specs from the manufacturer to see what the volume of the box needs to be. Now lastly, you've got 4th and 6th order bandpass boxes. Now these are mainly used for competition use. They're designed to basically give you a very large peak at a certain frequency of output. So most of the time if you go to an SPL show or a bass show, you'll find that the vehicles, they may have multiple subwoofers, but there'll be a box inside a box. So you'll find that there'll be a big wall and then a big port outside the wall as well. So a 4th order box essentially is a sealed box on the back of the subwoofer and a ported box on the front. So that, like I say, will give you certain frequencies that boost very, very high. Now a 6th order box is basically 2 ported boxes together. So the back half of the sub is ported, the front half of the sub is ported. Again, it will change how the subwoofer plays. Most of the time it's going to be for competition use. But if you need more information about that, we can drop another video later down the line. Okay, so the next part is sound treatment. So you may have heard of sound deadening, dynamat, skins, those kind of things. This is a way of reducing vibrations and rattles in the cabin. So when you have a big beefy subwoofer, you're going to be flexing. If you've got a big open panel, usually vehicles that aren't well sounded are going to rattle. So a way of reducing that and increasing the actual output of the subwoofer is doing some sound treatment. So sound deadening is essentially, if you're going for, say, dynamat, it's a big panel with an aluminium sheet over the top, and it's like a very tarry substance. So essentially what you're doing is sticking that to the inside skin of the metal carcass of your vehicles, the body panels, and that is reducing the way that can vibrate and resonate. So doing that is going to make it more dense, more acoustically friendly inside the vehicle. It's just going to overall improve the sound of your sub. So you're not just listening to rattles, you're listening to bass. Now, next part is cabling. Now, as I'm sure you're probably aware, cabling is very, very important in car radio. It gives all of your electronic equipment life. But if you're not using the correct cables or you're cheaping out slightly on the cables, you're going to be reducing how much your equipment can perform. So what is the difference in your main power and RCA cables? You've got CCA and OFC. So what's the difference between those? Usually it is copper-coated aluminium. Sometimes it can be tinned with other metals. But if you go to OFC, this is the better cable to use. This is oxygen-free copper. Now, when it comes to speaker cable and RCAs, you still have that oxygen-free copper and CCA option. Again, you want to be going for the oxygen-free copper. It's a lot better quality, and again, it's a lot more resistant to corrosion. Now, also with speaker cable, you need to be thinking about what gauge you need to run. For speakers, to be honest, most of the time you'll be absolutely fine with a 16 gauge cable like this. When you're going to subwoofers, because it's using a lot more wattage, you need to be thickening that cable up, beef it up a little bit. So from 16 gauge, you probably want to go maybe a 12 or a 10 gauge. Some big subwoofers even take an 8 gauge speaker cable. Okay, if you're still with us, lastly, we've got the audio source. If your audio source is not up to scratch, you're not going to be getting very good output. So you need to know the difference. Do you have a factory or aftermarket head unit? Again, this is very important because if you have a factory head unit, what are you using to give signal to your amplifier? Are you using a line-out converter or are you using high-level input? The problem is with high-level input, you're sending a high voltage signal directly into the amp. Now, not all amplifiers will be able to drop that voltage. You're going to be amplifying a high voltage signal, which means high noise. Again, sending that into your subwoofer, you're not going to be getting the best quality. If you're using a not so good head unit and the RCA outputs are, let's say, 2 volts or 2.5 volts, again, that can be improved. You can go up to 5 or even 6 volts on some head units on the pre-outs. That way you're giving still low noise but good voltage into the amplifier, so you can then amplify that. Moving on, lastly, you've got tuning. Now this has to probably be the most important part. Tuning the amplifier correctly for your subwoofer is so important, it's not even funny. I see so many times of people who just crank the gains up on the amplifier and expect it to produce what they want it to out of the subwoofer. The gain on an amp is not a volume controller. You need to be correctly tuning the system. That goes for the controls on the amp and the controls on your head unit. So for instance, a low pass filter. That essentially filters frequencies so that the subwoofer is only getting those low frequencies. And lastly, tuning for wattage. There is a specific way that you can do it using Ohm's law and a multimeter, getting the correct wattage that the amplifier can produce directly into your subwoofer. Now again, if that's something that you'd be interested in and learning how to do, drop us a comment down below and we'll be sure to try and get that in the channel very, very soon. So if you're still not quite sure on what you need to do to improve the bass in your vehicle, please feel free to head down to our store. I'll be there, my colleagues will be there. We've got a plethora of different products and stuff for demo that you can look at. If that's not for you, if you're too far away, we have a website that you can go on. All of the products I mentioned and even the different parts are available on our website. So just head on down, caraudisecurity.com. There's plenty on there. But yeah, that's it from me. Now, if there are any more informative videos that you'd like me to make on anything you're not sure on, be, let's say, tuning an amplifier or setting up speakers in your vehicle, please feel free to drop a comment down below. We're trying to make some more informative videos going forward, so leave that down below. We'll try and get something more on the channel. But that's it from me. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.